Imagine this. A young, battle-hardened captain from a small African nation struts into the United Nations, his military boots echoing in the hallowed halls. The room is packed with presidents, prime ministers, and diplomats, all expecting another predictable summit. But then Captain Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso steps up to the mic, and the air shifts. His words cut like a machete, calling out global powers with a fearless grin. And here's the kicker. When he's done, the whole room stands, jaws dropped, unsure whether to clap or clutch their pearls. How does a 37-year-old soldier-turned-president make the world's elite freeze in their tracks? Stick around, because this story's got more twists than a spy thriller. The UN doors swing open picture, the United Nations General Assembly, September 2024. A room buzzing with the usual diplomatic hum. Suits, ties, and carefully rehearsed speeches. World leaders sip coffee, half listening, expecting another predictable day. Then, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso's 37-year-old firebrand president, steps through the doors. The air shifts. This isn't your typical head of state. Dressed in a crisp military uniform, his beret tilted just so, he carries the swagger of a man who's stared down insurgents and toppled regimes. Whispers ripple through the crowd. Who is this guy? Oh, they're about to find out. Traoré's not here to play nice. He's got a speech in his pocket that's less a diplomatic address and more a Molotov cocktail. As he strides to the podium, you can feel the tension. This is a man who, 2 years earlier, led a coup to seize Burkina Faso's presidency, promising to break the chains of foreign influence. Now, he's got the world's biggest stage, and he's not wasting a second. His eyes scan the room, locking onto the faces of leaders from global superpowers. Some shift uncomfortably in their seats. They've heard rumors about this young upstart who's been kicking French troops out of his country and cozying up to new allies like Russia and Mali. Before he even opens his mouth, the room feels smaller, the stakes higher. Traoré's presence alone is a challenge, a living, breathing rejection of the status quo. He's not just representing Burkina Faso. He's carrying the weight of a continent tired of being a footnote in global politics. The stage is set, and the world's about to see what happens when a soldier with a revolutionary's heart grabs the mic. The speech that shook the room, Captain Ibrahim Traoré grips the UN podium, his voice steady but laced with a fire that makes every word feel like a spark. It's September 2024, and the General Assembly is about to get a wake-up call. He starts with Burkina Faso's reality, a nation where jihadist groups like Jama'at Nasr al-Islam wal-Muslimin control swaths of land, displacing over 2 million people. But Traoré doesn't linger on victimhood. "We are not your pawns," he declares, his gaze sweeping over the delegates. He calls out the West, specifically France, the former colonial power, for decades of economic strangleholds disguised as aid. "Your CFA franc keeps us chained," he says, referencing the currency tying 14 African nations to French oversight. The room stiffens. French President Emmanuel Macron, seated near the front, keeps his face neutral, but his clenched jaw betrays him. Traoré's not done. He pivots to the United States, accusing it of fueling instability through selective arms deals and drone strikes that kill more civilians than terrorists. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, known for his measured demeanor, scribbles notes furiously, avoiding eye contact. Then comes the curveball. Traoré praises the alliance of Sahel states, a new bloc formed with Mali's Assimi Goïta and Niger's Abdourahmane Chiani, both military leaders who've also ousted pro-Western governments. "We don't need your permission to choose our friends," he says, nodding to Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, who smirks from the sidelines. The mention of Russia, a growing partner supplying Burkina Faso with weapons and mercenaries, sends a ripple of unease through Western delegates. He weaves in history, invoking Burkina Faso's revolutionary hero Thomas Sankara, assassinated in 1987. "Sankara told us to dare to invent the future. We're doing it now." It's a masterstroke, tying his defiance to a legacy that resonates across Africa. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa, a veteran of anti-colonial struggles, nods subtly, while Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu leans forward, intrigued. Traoré's speech isn't just rhetoric, it's a manifesto for a new African order, one that rejects IMF loans with strings attached and demands respect over charity. As he pauses, the silence is deafening. Nobody's checking their phone anymore. Ripples of defiance. As Ibrahim Traoré's speech reverberates through the UN chamber, the atmosphere crackles with unspoken tension. It's not just his words. It's the audacity of a young leader from a nation often dismissed as a footnote in global affairs. He's not begging for aid or reciting platitudes. Instead, he's laying out a vision that makes the old guard squirm. Traoré doubles down, spotlighting the hypocrisy of global institutions. Your Security Council vetoes protect the powerful, not the people, he says, pointing out how France and the U.S. have blocked resolutions that could have helped African nations tackle terrorism. The delegates from China, seated near Russia's Sergei Lavrov, exchange glances. Beijing's been quietly expanding its influence in Africa, and Traoré's words align with their narrative of challenging Western dominance. He shifts gears, painting a vivid picture of Burkina Faso's fight. Our farmers can't plant because of bombs, not drought, he says, his voice rising. He describes villages razed by insurgents, families fleeing with nothing but the clothes on their backs. But then he flips the script. We're not waiting for your helicopters. We're arming our people, training our youth. This is a nod to his Volunteer for the Defense of the Homeland program, a controversial move to arm civilians against jihadists. It's risky, and he knows it. Critics like UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk have warned of potential abuses, yet Traoré frames it as empowerment, a refusal to let foreign troops dictate Burkina Faso's fate. The delegate from Mali, whose own junta has embraced similar tactics, claps loudly, breaking protocol. The real bombshell comes when Traoré addresses sanctions. You punish us for choosing sovereignty, he says, referencing Western sanctions on Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger after their coups. He contrasts this with the warm welcome given to leaders who play ball with global powers. Across the room, UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy shifts uncomfortably. Britain's been vocal about condemning unconstitutional changes in the Sahel. Traoré's not naming names, but the implication is clear. The rules only apply to those who defy the West. His words land like a gauntlet, and for a moment you can almost hear the heartbeat of every diplomat in the room. They know this speech isn't just about Burkina Faso. It's a rallying cry for a continent ready to rewrite its story. The world watches. Divided Ibrahim Traoré's speech is no longer just a moment. It's a spark threatening to ignite debates far beyond the UN's marble halls. As he leans into the podium, his voice carries a mix of defiance and hope. He's not just speaking to the suits in the room. He's reaching millions watching grainy live streams in Ouagadougou, Bamako, and Niamey. He pivots to the youth, the heartbeat of Africa's future. Our generation will not kneel, he declares, his eyes blazing. We're building schools, not begging for your textbooks. He's referring to Burkina Faso's push for local education reforms, prioritizing African history and languages over colonial curriculums, a move that's earned him roars of approval back home, but raised eyebrows among Western NGOs like UNESCO, who question its feasibility. The room feels like a chessboard now, with every move calculated. Traoré knows his allies and his foes. He gives a subtle shout-out to Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, whose own push for African solutions to African problems has ruffled feathers in Washington and Brussels. We solve our crises together, or we fall apart alone, Traoré says, echoing the African Union's mantra but with a sharper edge. The delegate from Kenya, representing President William Ruto, shifts in his seat. Kenya's been cozy with the U.S., and Traoré's words feel like a challenge to pick a side. Meanwhile, Algeria's Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf, a vocal supporter of Sahel sovereignty, nods vigorously, his pen paused mid-note. But it's Traoré's closing jab that lands hardest. He calls out the double standards of global trade. You buy our gold, our uranium, our cotton, but sell us your rules, he says, his voice dripping with scorn. He's hitting at the heart of economic exploitation, how Burkina Faso's resources fuel Western industries while its people scrape by. The data backs him up. In 2023, Burkina Faso exported $4.5 billion in gold, yet 70% of its population lives on less than $2 a day. The European Union's representative, Josep Borrell, known for his blunt diplomacy, scribbles something, his face unreadable. Traoré's not just preaching, he's exposing a system rigged against his continent, and the world's leaders know they can't unhear it. The question hangs in the air. Who's ready to face this truth, and who's hoping it'll just fade away? A new dawn or a dangerous gamble? Ibrahim Traoré's voice softens, but the intensity in his eyes doesn't waver as he nears the end of his UN speech. The room, still reeling from his earlier salvos, leans in. He's not just tearing down old systems. He's sketching a blueprint for something new. Burkina Faso will rise, not because of your pity, but because of our will, he says, his words carrying the weight of a vow. He talks about the alliance of SA, nicknamed the AES, his brainchild with Mali and Niger. It's a pact to share resources, military might, and a dream of self-reliance. We're not your backyard, he adds, a direct shot at powers like France and the US, who've long treated the Sahel as a geopolitical playground. The delegate from Mali, representing Colonel Assimi Goïta, flashes a rare smile. AES is their shared rebellion. Traoré paints a vivid picture. Solar panels powering rural villages, local factories processing Burkina Faso's cotton instead of shipping it raw to Europe, and young coders in Ouagadougou building apps to rival Silicon Valley. It's ambitious, almost utopian, and skeptics like IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva, watching from the sidelines, might call it naive. After all, Burkina Faso's economy shrank 2.2% in 2024, and jihadist attacks spiked 20%. Yet Traoré's betting on grit over grants. He's already slashed government salaries, including his own, to fund local militias and rebuild schools, moves that have made him a folk hero to some and a reckless gambler to others. The final twist comes when he addresses the diaspora. Come home, he urges Africans abroad. Your skills, your dreams belong to us. It's a bold call, one that resonates with the 40 million Africans living outside the continent. The delegate from Ghana, representing President Nana Akufo-Addo, raises an eyebrow. Ghana's been wooing its diaspora too, but Traoré's raw passion hits differently. As he steps back from the podium, the room holds its breath. Is this a new dawn for Africa? Or a high-stakes bet that could crash and burn? One thing's clear, Traoré's vision is a magnet, pulling allies and enemies into its orbit, and the world can't look away. A new dawn, or a dangerous gamble? Ibrahim Traoré's voice softens, but the intensity in his eyes doesn't waver as he nears the end of his UN speech. The room, still reeling from his earlier salvos, leans in. He's not just tearing down old systems, he's sketching a blueprint for something new. Burkina Faso will rise, not because of your pity, but because of our will, he says, his words carrying the weight of a vow. He talks about the alliance of Sahel states, nicknamed the AES, his brainchild with Mali and Niger. It's a pact to share resources, military might, and a dream of self-reliance. We're not your backyard, he adds, a direct shot at powers like France and the US, who've long treated the Sahel as a geopolitical playground. The delegate from Mali, representing Colonel Assimi Goïta, flashes a rare smile. AES is their shared rebellion. Traoré paints a vivid picture. Solar panels powering rural villages, local factories processing Burkina Faso's cotton instead of shipping it raw to Europe, and young coders in Ouagadougou building apps to rival Silicon Valley. It's ambitious, almost utopian, and skeptics like IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva, watching from the sidelines, might call it naive. After all, Burkina Faso's economy shrank 2.2% in 2024, and jihadist attacks spiked 20%. Yet Traoré's betting on grit over grants. He's already slashed government salaries, including his own, to fund local militias and rebuild schools, moves that have made him a folk hero to some and a reckless gambler to others. The final twist comes when he addresses the diaspora. "Come home," he urges Africans abroad. "Your skills, your dreams belong to us." It's a bold call, one that resonates with the 40 million Africans living outside the continent. The delegate from Ghana, representing President Nana Akufo-Addo, raises an eyebrow. Ghana's been wooing its diaspora too, but Traoré's raw passion hits differently. As he steps back from the podium, the room holds its breath. Is this a new dawn for Africa, or a high-stakes bet that could crash and burn? One thing's clear: Traoré's vision is a magnet, pulling allies and enemies into its orbit, and the world can't look away. The echoes that follow. Ibrahim Traoré steps away from the UN podium, his speech still hanging in the air like smoke after a fire. The applause starts, scattered at first, then swelling, but it's not universal. Some delegates, like Brazil's Foreign Minister Mauro Vieira, clap with genuine enthusiasm, seeing parallels to Latin America's own push against external meddling. Others, like Canada's Melanie Joly, offer polite nods, their expressions guarded. The divide is clear. Traoré's words have split the room between those who see him as a visionary and those who fear he's a spark in a powder keg. As he exits the stage, his military boots clicking, every eye follows him, knowing this moment will ripple far beyond New York. Back in Burkina Faso, the speech is already a phenomenon. In Ouagadougou's crowded markets, vendors huddle around radios, replaying Traoré's lines about breaking free from the CFA franc. Young activists, clutching smartphones, upload clips to messaging apps, adding fist bump emojis and captions like "Our lion roars." The vibe is electric, but it's not all cheers. Elders in rural villages where jihadist attacks claimed 6,000 lives in 2024 alone whisper worries. Traoré's defiance might bring pride, but it's also brought sanctions, cutting off aid that once fed their communities. The EU's decision to suspend $50 million in development funds stings, and Traoré's pivot to Russian wheat and Chinese loans isn't filling the gap yet. Globally, the speech lights up diplomatic backchannels. In Moscow, Kremlin advisors toast Traoré as a wedge against Western influence, while in Paris, French Defense Minister Sébastien Lecornu briefs President Macron on how to counter Burkina Faso's drift into Russia's orbit. Meanwhile, African leaders feel the heat. Zimbabwe's President Emerson Mnangagwa, no stranger to sanctions, sends a private note of solidarity, but Morocco's Foreign Minister Nasser Bourita stays silent. His country's pro-Western stance makes Traoré's rhetoric a tricky sell. The world's chessboard is shifting, and Traoré's gambit has forced everyone to recalculate. His speech isn't just a headline, it's a fault line, exposing who stands with Africa's new rebels and who's betting against them. The standing ovation that shook the world. The UN General Assembly Hall is a pressure cooker as Ibrahim Traoré delivers his final words, his voice a blend of steel and soul. "Africa is not your playground, and we are not your pawns," he says, slamming his fist on the podium for emphasis. The room freezes. For a split second, it's as if the world holds its breath. Diplomats, aides, even the translators in their booths are caught off guard. Then, like a wave breaking, the applause erupts. It starts with Algeria's Ahmed Attaf, who leaps to his feet, clapping with the fervor of a man who's waited decades for this moment. Mali's delegate follows, then Ethiopia's, and soon half the African bloc is standing, their cheers drowning out the stunned silence of others. This isn't just a standing ovation, it's a seismic shift. Traoré, the 37-year-old soldier president from a nation battered by insurgency and poverty, has done the unthinkable. He's forced the world's most powerful to reckon with him. South Africa's Cyril Ramaphosa, a titan of African politics, rises slowly, his face unreadable, but his applause steady. Perhaps a nod to Traoré's courage, perhaps a calculation of what this means for the continent. Even neutral players like India's S. Jaishankar join in, sensing a new fault line in global politics. But the Western Bloc is a mixed bag. Germany's Annalena Baerbock claps tentatively, her green ideals clashing with her government's realpolitik. The U.S.'s Antony Blinken and France's Emmanuel Macron stay seated, their faces carved in stone, knowing Traoré's words have just redrawn their diplomatic maps. The cameras catch it all. Traoré standing tall, his beret a defiant symbol as the ovation swells. In Ouagadougou, bars and homes explode with pride. People spill into the streets, waving Burkina Faso's flag, chanting, "Sankara lives." But the triumph is laced with danger. Traoré's speech has made him a hero to millions, yet it's also painted a target on his back. The CIA's Langley briefings now mention his name alongside Mali's Goïta and Niger's Chiani, labeling the AES a destabilizing force. Russia's Sergei Lavrov, still clapping, sees opportunity. More arms deals, more influence. China's Wang Yi, ever the strategist, takes mental notes, calculating how Traoré's defiance fits Beijing's African playbook. This moment is more than a speech's end, it's a line in the sand. Traoré has thrown down a gauntlet, daring the world to choose sides. His vision of an Africa unbound, free from Western loans, colonial currencies, and foreign boots, has ignited hope in some and fear in others. The ovation fades, but the echoes won't. Leaders shuffle out, whispering about sanctions, alliances, and whether this young captain can survive the storm he's unleashed. One thing's certain, the world's eyes are on Burkina Faso, and Traoré's not blinking. A spark becomes a flame. As the echoes of the standing ovation fade, Ibrahim Traoré's silhouette lingers on the UN stage, a solitary figure who's just set the world alight. The real climax isn't the applause, it's what his speech has unleashed. Across Africa, from Dakar to Addis Ababa, his words blaze through radio waves and WhatsApp groups, igniting a fervor not seen since the anti-colonial uprisings of the 1960s. In Burkina Faso, youth in dusty T-shirts march through Ouagadougou holding signs that read, "Africa for Africans," and "Down with the CFA." Traoré's call to reject foreign dominance has become a battle cry, not just for his nation, but for a generation itching to rewrite their destiny. The global fallout is immediate and ferocious. In Paris, French President Emmanuel Macron convenes an emergency meeting with advisors, rattled by Traoré's public dismantling of France's Sahel strategy. France's influence, already waning after being expelled from Mali and Niger, faces a new blow. Burkina Faso's parliament votes to audit French mining contracts, threatening companies like Orano, which extracts uranium for Europe's reactors. Across the Atlantic, U.S. Pentagon officials scrambled to reassess their counterterrorism ops in the Sahel, where Traoré's pivot to Russian Wagner mercenaries has slashed their drone bases' effectiveness. Even the African Union, often a cautious player, feels the heat. Chairperson Moussa Faki Mahamat calls an urgent summit to address the AES's growing clout, wary of Traoré's pull on younger leaders like Senegal's Bassirou Diomaye Faye. Yet the true shockwave is cultural. Traoré's speech, with its echoes of Thomas Sankara's 1980s defiance, sparks a renaissance of African pride. In Nigeria, filmmakers announce a biopic on Sankara, while Kenyan musicians drop viral tracks sampling Traoré's UN lines. The hashtag #JarkAfricaRises trends globally, with 10 million posts in 48 hours. But danger looms. Insurgent groups exploit the chaos, launching attacks near Burkina Faso's border, killing 47 civilians days after the speech. Critics, including UN envoy Rosemary DiCarlo, warn Traoré's rhetoric could inflame tensions, alienating allies like ECOWAS, which suspended Burkina Faso post-coup. As Traoré boards his plane back home, he's no longer just a president. He's a lightning rod, carrying a vision that could unite a continent or burn it down. The world holds its breath, wondering which it'll be. The fire that won't fade. Ibrahim Traoré's UN speech isn't just a moment in time, it's a fuse that's still burning. He walked into a room of global giants and walked out a legend, his words carving a new path for Burkina Faso and beyond. From calling out colonial relics like the CFA franc to rallying Africa's youth with dreams of self-reliance, he's planted a seed that's already sprouting in the streets of Ouagadougou and the group chats of Lagos. The alliance of Sahel states, his bold bet on regional unity, is shaking up the old world order, forcing everyone from Paris to Beijing to rethink their moves. But it's not all glory. Sanctions bite, insurgents strike, and the road ahead is a tightrope over a volcano. What's the takeaway? Traoré's shown that a small nation, battered but unbowed, can make the world listen. He's not just a soldier or a president, he's a mirror reflecting Africa's hunger for respect and a future on its own terms. Will his gamble pay off, or will it spark chaos? That's the question hanging over every cheer and every critique. One thing's for sure, the fire he lit at the UN isn't going out anytime soon. So, what do you think? Can Traoré's vision reshape Africa, or is he playing with forces too big to tame? Drop your thoughts below. Hit that like button if you felt the heat, and subscribe for more stories that shake the world. Let's keep this conversation blazing.